Hello, hello, hello. Tyler James here with Comics Launch, and we got a lot to talk about today. We are going to talk about some evidence that long feared, long rumored, not safe for work project Shutdown may have already started. We're going to dive into that. Also going to, while I'm live here, talk a little bit about Mastermind and some upcoming things Mastermind related. And I'm also going to shout out some recent ComixLaunch Pro class projects that have launched. So we're going to dive into it. Hope everybody is doing well. Hope everyone had a great Memorial Day weekend as I get my stuff queued up over here. But yeah, let's get this show rolling. Going to get my banners going, and we're going to start with just some ComixLaunch Pro campaign shout outs, highlight some of the cool stuff that's going on in our community. This is one that just launched today. This is No Spells Last Forever, the third launch from Sarah Cook. Let's watch just a sec or two of this video so you can see what No Spells Last Forever is all about.
A magic-wielding criminal makes a deal with the devil for a second chance at life. Her assignment? To corrupt one truly good person. But can she go through with it? And if not, what will it mean for the fate of her eternal soul?
Yeah, so this was a project that launched just today. Sarah's been a member of the ComixLaunch Pro program and community for a while now, and I'm excited to see her continue to this project well on its way to funding here on day one. And just it's fun to see her. This is her first ever comic book series, and it's excited to see just this project continuing to do well. So congrats to Sarah on this. If I were to just give one little bit of pro tip or something that she might want to do, and this is something that Kickstarter is their project videos.
A magic-wielding criminal.
Remember, when you your project videos will show up on silent when you are launching them and when when people are navigating around Kickstarter. So, for example, if I jump over to the Discover page and I roll over the top project on Kickstarter, which will also launch today, this G.I. Joe compendium, you'll see right when I roll over it, it plays on silent. But Sarah's video had no text, so she could really get her pitch elements, and she also embedded those into the videos. So that's something that I've been making a little bit of change to my videos. And something I recommend creators do as well. But shout out to Sarah. Really good looking project. If you're into fantasy, urban fantasy, magic, this might be up for you. Also, next up in the spotlight is this project from Craig Talifer, which also launched recently. It's called Thrilling Tales of Vistas Unknown. And let's watch a second or two of this video.
Hi, thanks so much for checking out the campaign. My name is Craig Talifer, and I'm the creator of Wahoo Morris, which I published in 2018 with the help of Kickstarter. I'm back on Kickstarter presenting Thrilling Tales of Vistas Unknown. It's a 48-page black and white comic book featuring 5 short stories that pay tribute to my classic adventure and fantasy comic book influences. If you like EC comics, weird sci-fi, and fantasy, then this comic is probably right up your alley.
So, good stuff from Craig here. Craig, I mean, just wildly talented.
You've got space.
He's a total cartoonist. You know, just somebody that he can flat out draw and is a classically trained. Like the stuff just it oozes professionalism. And he's a vet. He knows what he's doing. And so I'm excited to see him back on Kickstarter after you know, a little bit of hiatus. It was, I think it was several years ago that he launched his first campaign. So it's good to have Craig back for this collection. So definitely check that out. It's great to have Craig in the community. And I would give Craig that same note that I just gave Sarah. Note that the first, you get a title up, but in your first 15, 20 seconds or so, sort of what I often call a teaser, or just like but just in that little teaser hook video section, including the pitch in text, is something that would run on Kickstarter, even in preview mode. But so it's nice to have, you know, get some text that people can read, even when they're not on your project. Again, just you roll over some of these campaigns, and you'll notice that text is popping up, and so getting a pitch in with text along with some of Craig's great art will be more effective. So small note, but definitely check out Craig's project if you can. And the last project I'm going to highlight is the latest from the awesome team that includes Clay Adams. This is a Fried Comics project. It's called Dream Quest. And yeah, let's watch a second or two of Dream Quest.
Hey everybody, it's Clay Adams from Fried Comics. We are pleased to bring you Dream Quest. Dream Quest is a complete, done-in-one tale that expands on Lovecraft's dream cycle. Imagine Reanimator meets Dream Warriors. Several of his stories focus on the character of Randolph Carter, who's loosely based on Lovecraft himself. At the end of the dream cycle, Randolph has disappeared into the Dreamlands and is desperately trying to return home. Do you need to know anything about the dream cycle to enjoy this one-shot? Nope. Our story starts with a brand new character of our own invention, Margot Carter, as she's contacted by Randolph in her dreams. And we commissioned some special variants. Some are safe for work, some are not safe for work. For those of you who wish Barbara Crampton was still starring in Lovecraft adaptations. Mick is providing plenty of opportunities for original art. You can get a one-of-a-kind.
All right, so I'm going to stop it here, but this definitely looks like another banger from Clay, and as well as Mick Byers, who just does tremendous work. And I like how Clay leaned in the video to just trying to make it clear that, hey, this is a great jumping on point for anyone, and treating every Kickstarter as a potential new reader friendly jumping on point is always a good thing to do. So definitely shout out the Dream Quest folks. They just hit their 48 hours to go window, just passed over 10K in funding. So I was excited to see that do well as well. So congrats to Clay and the rest of the team. And those are just a few of the projects that are live this month in the ComixLaunch Pro programming community. That's a community that I run for comic creators and crowdfunders. And every month we've got several dozen creators that are launching and then cross-promoting, collaborating. And it's fun to see these projects get out there and make things happen on the Kickstarter platform. So congrats to those creators that have launched. Anyone that wants to get to know more about the ComixLaunch Pro programmer community can always go over to comixlaunch.com/class, take my free 1-hour Kickstarter masterclass, and then you'll get some information about what we have for you inside of ComixLaunch Pro. Okay. So today I want to do a little deep dive into some comics crowdfunding and Kickstarter news, particularly around a topic that has been something that we've been speculating on and talking about lately. And that is the idea, the rumor that not safe for work projects would soon be placing under new rules, that Kickstarter would be cracking down on not safe for work comics, and that there are big changes to come to the platform. And so about a month ago, I went live here and sort of dove into this and shared some of the rumors that I had been hearing about Kickstarter sort of reaching out to creators, encouraging them, or strongly recommending, or in some cases not approving projects until they made some changes to their project pages. And that also saying that, hey, we may be facing tougher scrutiny from Stripe, our payment processors, and so that's why you want to make these changes. And there was also some speculation of I'm seeing less not safe for work projects on Kickstarter, or if there were some times over the past month or two that some creators had said, hey, it seems like when I'm scrolling that Kickstarter might be hiding these projects or shadow banning them, or they're just less apparent, less in my face. Is that going on? And so about a month ago, we dove all into that. And one of the things that I basically left a month ago was with the feeling that these rumors are definitely true. And when you look at Stripe's terms of service and you look at the power disparity between Stripe and Kickstarter, that one, Stripe really does call the shots, and Kickstarter is limited as to what they can do or how they could potentially battle back against Stripe. Stripe is the more powerful entity in this case. And then two, when you actually look at Stripe's terms of service, which we did in that session, many of the Kickstarter projects that were alive and funding in that category, they were in violation of Stripe's specific terms of service. And so it would not be shocking if Kickstarter projects start getting shut down, or if Stripe is taking more of a stance on this, or if they're enforcing this more. But I did leave that saying, until we start seeing these actual projects get banned, or an actual slapdown coming, or Kickstarter coming out and explicitly saying, hey, there are new rules in place, that I didn't actually think there might be anything going on here, other than maybe just trying to be cognizant that Stripe and other entities may be paying a little bit more attention. And so that's sort of where I stood a month ago. Well, but one thing that I did say was that we've got to start seeing some examples of projects that are getting funded or are getting funded and then getting shut down before we can jump and panic. And I totally understand that this is a very important topic, because there are awesome creators out there like Jeff Messer. What's up, Jeff? Also ComixLaunch Pro member. But Jeff says, I'm preparing a new Not Safe for Work campaign and hope to submit it for approval by next week. So I'm about to find out what the changes may be. Yeah, so we're going to dive into this, Jeff, and hopefully I'll give you some guidance by the end of this stream for at least what I would do in this situation, even though we are still in a world where there are still a lot of questions to be answered. But so what I want to do is answer the question now, are projects being shut down? And for the first time in a while, I can say definitively, yes, I have an example of a project that was shut down as a result of this, and was shut down explicitly with the reasoning being the content of the project, but it played out a little bit interestingly. So what I want to do is I want to just lay out the facts and the timeline of this one particular instance and this one particular project, and then we'll try to extrapolate, explain why this happened to this project. We'll also answer the question, have all Not Safe for Work projects been shut down on Kickstarter, or is that coming? What's going on? We'll try to answer the question, well, if not everybody is being shut down, why are some being shut down and others not being shut down? I have a theory about what's going on here. I also want to talk about, because in my community, we had a really good discussion and robust discussion about, well, does this mean that we need alternatives either to Kickstarter for other crowdfunders or alternative payment processors that we need to look at? And we'll talk a little bit about why there's not a lot of clear, clean answers there. And then I'm also going to sort of share a little bit about what I would do if I was in a creator's like Jeff's position and had this kind of project, but also talk about how we may be in a sort of state where creators are going to be playing not safe for work project Russian roulette here, and that this uncertainty, while less than ideal, it may still be the how things are for the foreseeable future. So I'm definitely going to dive into all of this, but let's talk and let's start with the example of a project that got shut down for not safe for work. And so this is a project from a creator who, I'll be honest, I was not familiar with prior to this, but this is someone that the creator's name is Steve K of Deep Cover Studios. And this is not a first-time creator. Steve Kupaszewski has actually launched 5 projects. It looks like all of them successfully funded. I believe Steve has a good track record of delivering on past projects for his backers. And so this was the project, Deep Cover Studios Anthology #1. Now, if you look at the actual Kickstarter campaign, what it'll look like is that this was a successfully funded project. If you check out the updates, you'll see from a timeline standpoint, this was a project that launched on April 20th of 2024. It was sort of your standard 30-day Kickstarter launch that ran 30 days and ended on May 20th, 2024. And it says it's 28 backers pledged, $705. So on the grand scheme of things, not a huge Kickstarter, 28 backers, $705. Not from Kickstarter standpoint or from, even comics Kickstarter standpoint, it's not a massive project. But again, that's no shade on Steve or anybody at Deep Cover Studios. I am personally someone that thinks it's awesome that Kickstarter exists for projects of all sizes. But this was a project that it funded actually. If you look at the timeline, this wasn't a last minute fund either. This was a project that actually funded within the first 12 hours. Kind of a weird, when you look at the Kickstarter mapping and funding progress, it's actually kind of a weird chart where this project hit its $500 goal right there on day one, had a decent day 3, and then 3 weeks of crickets and pretty much flatlined, and then had a small bump on the final day. But in looking at what actually happened here, it really did seem like that an issue really struck on the final day of this campaign. Going over to Steve's Facebook page, you'll see on May 20th, Steve posted this. He said, "Anyone else having issues with Kickstarter payments? First, I had backers unable to pledge to my campaign. First, I had backers unable to pledge to my project due to payment errors. I opened a ticket while the Kickstarter was still live, but Kickstarter support did nothing to fix it. Now that the Kickstarter is over and funded, every single backer is errored out. I opened a second ticket, which was then solved and nothing fixed. I just did a follow-up to that ticket, have yet to receive any kind of response. I'm beyond pissed off with the lack of support Kickstarter is offering. I'd love to know how much money my project lost to this error and the backers, with backers not saying anything, and I just gave up. I know I lost about $500 in canceled pledges, which is a lot for a tiny company to lose." So what I'm hearing here is that even before Steve's campaign ended, he was getting notices from prospective backers that on that last day, they were unable to pledge or have their pledges completed on his campaign. And then Steve followed up by saying that and shared more details that after the campaign is over, we know what usually happens after a campaign is over. As soon as the campaign ends, Kickstarter tries to charge all of the credit cards that you have on file. Now, most creators will find that with that first attempt at charge, anywhere between 95%, anywhere between 90 and 95% of the charges will just go through no problem. And that usually there's anywhere between 5 and 10% that are errored. And then over the next week, Kickstarter tries to correct that error, get it fixed. Sometimes that means just charging it again when there's more, more funds on the card. Sometimes that means backers actually updating their expiration dates or adding a new card. But you've got a 7-day window to do this. But one thing that I've never seen, and most creators have never seen, is that when the campaign ends and Kickstarter tries to charge your backers, every single one of the backers pledges errored. Like, I've never seen that. I've never heard of that happening. That suggests that there's something wrong overall, not just a happenstance where every backer had a errored credit card. That's just not going to happen. So definitely suggested that something was wrong. Now, to go back to Steve's timeline here, he a few days after that, May 22nd, so 2 days after his campaign ended, Steve received a response from Kickstarter Trust and Safety. He said, "Hi there. Thank you for your patience. We're sorry about what's going on. We're working on escalating this issue to Stripe, as it appears there's a mistake over on their end. We will continue to advocate for your work and remind them that you've had multiple successful campaigns in the past. Unfortunately, seeing as the project has ended, the project will need to be relaunched because Stripe has disabled the credit card transfers on their end. The errored payments will not process. We greatly apologize for this experience and will follow up as soon as we hear back from Stripe about what happened. Best, Kickstarter Trust and Safety." So, on the one hand, the good news is it wasn't anybody on Kickstarter that slapped Steve's project. Kickstarter reported that there was an issue at Stripe. Now, on May 22nd, it sounded like Kickstarter was both saying, well, we're elevating this with Stripe, but also that you might have to relaunch your project. That seemed like an insane response to me. And as far as I know, like, Stripe, even if pledges or credit cards don't get charged, all of that information should be retained. There should be tokens. There should be things on the back end so that unless this was intentional on someone at Stripe's, from Stripe's viewpoint, there's no reason they shouldn't be able to recover these payments. At least that's what I understand. But Steve ended up getting further clarification a couple days after that. And he said this, he said, "So I just learned my account on Stripe has been disabled. This is why all my backer accounts were errored out." And this is what he got from Kickstarter. He said, "Hi again, just a quick update that Stripe has since informed us that your account was disabled as adult-themed comics are not supportable on their platform. Should you choose to launch a comic that is not adult-themed, you are welcome to relaunch on Kickstarter. We apologize for any inconvenience." So that goes a long way, right? Best, Kickstarter Trust and Safety. So obviously, Steve on Facebook said, "I'm feeling pissed off." Totally understandable. And what Steve's saying is there's thousands of comics on Kickstarter with adult themes that have no problem getting funded. Why is Stripe censoring art they have no part of, other than making money to process payments? Every comic I've funded before has had some adult content and had 0 issues. There's tens of thousands of not safe for work comics on Kickstarter that I have no problem getting funded. Anyone have any other Kickstarter funded sites that don't deal with Stripe and allow adult content?" So when Steve posted that a few days ago, he ended up jumping on a live stream, and I'll try to link up to that live stream that I caught some of. And there was also other creators that are obviously interested in this topic, and so you can actually hear from Steve on that live stream and some other creators. And there was even the one of the creators and founders of fundmycomic.com, which is like a Kickstarter alternative that has tried to sort of pick up projects that Kickstarter, potentially would not launch. And so anyway, I'll link up to that stream if you want to check that out. But that's sort of Steve's statement here. And so there's some interesting questions that this raise, right? Because, all right, if they're coming after Steve, and this is not, presumably, this would not be the first project targeted if they were doing a massive raid on Not Safe for Work comics, right? A $700 project with 28 backers, probably, if the goal was, all right, we are bringing the hammer down on Not Safe for Work projects, this probably wouldn't be where you'd start, right? But the question is, like, is Steve an outlier? Is he an anomaly? Like, was this a mistake? Or is there a Not Safe for Work project shutdown going on Kickstarter? Well, I mean, the answer to that, you do not have to look very far. The answer to that is no. There is not suddenly a Not Safe for Work project ban on Kickstarter. A quick scroll through, we'll see a number of projects that are already playing in the Not Safe for Work comic space. The number 3 on Kickstarter right now is the latest from Brian Pulido, which is a Lady Death book that clearly has, the same naughty and nice covers that he usually does. In terms of adult content, there's graphic violence, obviously. So this has not been shut down. Miss Meow has, potentially, even more gratuitous and clearly, trending on the nudity and with the covers as well. Maybe not so much in the content of the book, but definitely the covers. And then the latest from Pat Shand, which just went live a little while ago. Clearly sexual content, covers, covers with a lot of censor bars. So it's clear kind of what they're offering. So none of these projects, as of right now, as of today, have been shut down. So what's going on here? And so then the question becomes, well, was there something particularly gratuitous about Deep Cover Studios Anthology #1 that needed to be shut down? And so, if you take a deep dive look at this book, it's like, okay, if I was going to make the case that this project has gone above and beyond what is acceptable over on Kickstarter, we can take a look at that as an idea, and I guess if I was going to make the Steelman case for why shut down this project and not others, well, it has, a topless, though censored with a Kickstarter bar, project image. Okay, that's one thing. This cover right here, basically is about as gratuitous as you're going to get on a Kickstarter cover. So I guess that could be something. And then when you look at the comic book content itself, we've got, 1, 2, 3, most of the preview pages do have some element of nudity with a little bit of very small censor bars, right? So I could see this project getting flagged. And again, it's important to go back to the terms of service for, if this is Stripe that is flagging this, it's important to look at what Stripe says. And what Stripe does clearly say in their terms of services that that their prohibited businesses is adult content and services. And one of the bullets under there is pornography and other mature audience content, including literature, imagery, and other media depicting nudity and or nudity or explicit sexual acts. So from a straight look at the definition of what Stripe is saying that their terms of service is, yeah, it's pretty clear that this project violates that or would potentially be in violation of by these strict definitions. This does. However, so does Lady Death, and so does Miss Meow, and so does Amorini. And I don't think there's any, reasonable argument that could be made to say that this project was so over the bounds and so wildly abusing the rules that this one needed to be shut down, when many of the other projects on Kickstarter Discovery, like this right here, like Cherry's Jubilee. And the creator for that often leaves a message on the Comics Launch voicemail. Love it. Like, I'm not throwing any shade at any of these projects, but like a XXX comic anthology with rare errata covers by various artists with, censored nudity cover images. Like, this is clearly, again, in violation of Stripe. So it's not clear why, it's not clear why that one project was picked and others were not. And it is not, and so, but it is also clear that there is not some site-wide massive shutdown, or this is not a universal thing that has just gone into effect. It really does seem like there was this project that was targeted. Now, I have been hearing in other groups that, I'm hearing it. This isn't that Deep Cover Studios Anthology #1 was not the only project targeted. And I have been hearing creators say that they've heard of 2 or 3 other projects that had this same issue, where there was a Stripe cancellation, and even if the Kickstarter funded, and they can't get their Kickstarter funds and nothing processed. Unfortunately, before I was able to go live here, I haven't been able to confirm what those are. So if that's you, if that's your project, if your project was shut down, or if you know of a project that had this happen other than this project, I'd like to hear about it, just because I'm trying to track this stuff and see what's going on, so that we can keep the comic community just informed. But this is the only one that I've verified, that I've seen the creator sort of post screenshots, post communication, and share that this is an issue. All right. So one of the things that Steve had said, and sort of in his frustration, and that he posted about, was that he said, and he asked the question, why was my Kickstarter targeted when Lady Death and so many others have not safe for work covers and continue to get funded? And then he sort of said, well, I do know why, but it's a double standard. If my Kickstarter did 10,000 plus in funding, I'm sure there wouldn't be any issues. All right. Now, totally get Steve's frustration. And I can imagine what it's like to get funded, have everything go through, like getting ready the next day to, send my printer files to the printer, or move ahead with fulfillment, only to find, like, after the campaign is over and after it's successful, oh wait, you're not getting any of this, and you have to do it again. It's craziness. All right. So I can't imagine what he's thinking, but I do not buy that. Well, of course Kickstarter and of course Stripe is going to let Brian Polito get away with it, but because he's a bigger creator. But we're going to hammer down and come down hard on the little guy. I don't buy that, for the simple reason that Stripe is a $14.4 billion company, billion with a B. And, on a $700 Kickstarter, like this Kickstarter from Steve, Stripe makes $24.50, right? So you could argue, well, obviously that's a drop in the bucket. They can afford to lose Steve's business, right? But for a $10,000 project, they would allow it. Well, on a $10,000 project, they make $350. Like, I don't really see a $14 billion company go ahead and changing their operations over that kind of difference. And then even when you say, well, what about Polito's projects? Polito's project's going to raise $300K. Stripe's going to make, again, Stripe makes a kind of a flat 3.5% about-ish on every project that's launched in processing fees. Well, on Polito's project, 300K, that'd be about $10,000. $10,000 seems like a lot of money, and there's a lot of money to a lot of people. There's a lot of money. It would be a lot of money to me, but it's a drop in the bucket in a $14 billion empire and a $14 billion processing company. And so I just don't see them operating at that kind of scale where they would have, a threshold where when you make above this amount, we look the other way, because this amount in the grand scheme of things for everything they process, it's not that big. I don't buy that. But here's my theory. And again, I don't have any inside information on this, but reviewing the facts and reviewing what I know about how Kickstarter works, how Stripe works, and what's going on lately here, I do have a theory about what happened here. And so, and part of this is that I have noticed that there seems to be a little bit of a slight change in what happens when you submit a project for Kickstarter and Stripe review. So what part of the process when you create a Kickstarter project and you start building it on Kickstarter, after you identify yourself and the entity that you are launching under, you're taken in the verification process and the payment process this is sort of the step before you upload your bank account, is that you have to make sure that you are connected to Stripe. And you do this on a project basis. You do this for every project. You don't do it just once and it's fine. Every single project, and every time you launch a project, you'll have to go hit a page that currently looks like this, where you're going to verify your personal details. You're going to give your legal name, your an email address. You're going to provide your date of birth, your home address, your phone number, and the last 4 digits of your social security. Now, when you hit continue, this is something that I do not believe that Kickstarter or Stripe has always asked for this. I believe this is somewhat new, but you're asked to provide some details about how you earn money with Kickstarter, and it asks you to submit a website. If you hit no URL, like you don't have a website, it allows you to describe your product, but it also says that if you're sharing a product description instead of a URL, you're confirming that you don't use a website, app, social media page, or online profile to promote or sell products and services. And that's not something that you want to say that you do, because you are using a website to sell your products, right? And so what most people will do here is they will put in a link to their current Kickstarter project, probably a link to the preview page, or that makes the most sense. I think some people might also link to their generic company website. So that would be another thing that you could do. So those are two things that you do, but everyone, in order to launch a Kickstarter project now, has to hit this page and should put a website in here. And so again, when I was just setting this up for a couple of projects, I just grabbed the link of my preview page for the particular project and linked to that, and then hit continue. And then after you hit continue, you sort of immediately are processed. So that tells me that no one over at Stripe is actually looking at whatever website that you put in here. No one's reviewing it. They're just basically running a check on your home address, your last 4, your social, your phone number, and your name. And if that checks out, you actually get verified, and you can move on to the next part and can actually move ahead with submitting your project on Kickstarter. But Stripe is now taking URLs from websites and storing them presumably somewhere on their site, and likely reviewing them at some point in the future as a part of their sort of business auditing. And so I'm assuming, and again, I don't know this, I wasn't able to get this answer from Steve, but I would bet that when he set up his Stripe, he either submitted a link to his Kickstarter project that he was going to be launching and shared a link to that, or he submitted a link to maybe his website that he uses for his Kickstarter. And I couldn't find a Deep Cover Studios URL, but I did find a Facebook page that he has. So it's possible that he linked to this or to this. But both of these sort of have the same content, and both of those you could find content that Stripe would determine is, again, against their terms of service. So what I think happened is that at some point during the launch, after Steve had launched, but towards the end of the campaign, or maybe even on that last day, someone at Stripe reviewed his project or reviewed the website that he linked to it, and determined that what he is selling, the products he is selling, are in violation of Stripe's terms of service. And they decided to, hit the cancel button, hit the shutdown button, and canceled his Stripe account. And that's why, and I believe they did this probably on or around the 20th, which was the day that his campaign ended. And that's why Steve likely saw that there were some errored pledges on his project while the campaign was still live and the people were having problems pledging to it. I'm guessing that Kickstarter doesn't really have a use case for projects that they approve, that connect successfully to Stripe, that launch, but sometime in the middle of the project, the connection between Stripe and Kickstarter is severed. I'm guessing that they might just not have the ability to sort of communicate that. And so when people are trying to submit and pledge for that project, and it was just automatically erroring. And then as soon as the campaign was over, Kickstarter's next thing is, all right, charge all these cards to Stripe, but because that Stripe account was turned off, canceled, suspended, however it was going to be laid out. When Kickstarter tried to charge all those cards, the connection wasn't there, everything errored, and that's why that happened. All right. And so my guess is that Deep Cover Studios and Steve just got unlucky in that his project was his account was probably pulled at random from the millions and millions of Stripe accounts that are out there. I'm sure that a small number of them get audited within 30 days, and he probably just lucked out or did not luck out, and his got picked, reviewed while his project was still live and shut down. And that just kind of randomly not randomly, but he got unlucky. He was unluckily picked, and that's what severed the issue. Now, Steve has since been posting updates to his group, and he informing his 28 backers, and he's been sort of sharing the updates that he was sharing on Facebook, but also sharing this with his Kickstarter backers. It sounds like the most recent thing was that he was able to speak with Stripe, and they were able to look into the issue. And he says, I'm now waiting on Stripe. He said, so I'm waiting on Kickstarter to count Stripe with my account info to get it reinstated. Nothing will probably happen until at least Monday, as Kickstarter takes the weekend off. His response from Steve, it was like, hi, Steve, thanks for reaching out to Stripe. According to our specialized teams, it looks like the account that you're referring to is account, which was a custom connected account that is connected to Kickstarter. Having said that, I'm instructed to inform you that the platform where this Stripe account is connected should reach out to us for your account to be reinstated. We look forward to your response. And so I guess I'm curious to see. So it sounds like Steve's next steps is he's going to try to get Kickstarter to get his account reinstated, and he is going to relaunch. He says, once my account is reinstated, I will relaunch with bigger sensors on the art being displayed. However, there will be no changes to the art inside the book. I will not allow a company or a single person to tell me what I can or cannot draw or write. Stripe has zero say in the issue. They process payments. That's it. They do not get to dictate what I or anyone else does to make money as long as it's legal in my country. As a backup, I will also be launching on Fund My Comic Kickstarter on their platform, which will expire 5 days after the Kickstarter does. This will be a backup in case Stripe or Kickstarter does the same thing. Again, at the end of the campaign, and to block and disable pledges. 30 days running a Kickstarter is a lot of work, but I put in another 30 days to get my books out into the world. Marvel and DC won't give you this content or these kinds of stories, so it's up to us, the little guys, to fill that slot. So that's how Steve is breaking this down for his audience and what he's doing. Now, the curious thing is that Fund My Comic, their primary, as far as I know, their primary payment processor is also Stripe. So while I'm not, and even though I watched some of the stream, and I understand that they are also potentially looking at other payment processors, it's not clear how much backup launching on a separate platform or a backup platform at the same time will actually give Steve. But I wish him well. I hope it works out. But I want to talk a little bit, because this sort of has brought up a pretty good question in my group, is like, oh, okay, well, if this is going down, or if Steve is just the first of many to come, do we need to be looking at other crowdfunding platforms? Should we jump ship? Is it time to jump ship? Is it time to move? And should we jump to Indiegogo or BackerKit or Crowdfunder or Fund My Comic or any of the others? The problem with that move is that all of those crowdfunding platforms use Stripe. Stripe is the biggest game in town when it comes to these kinds of transactions. And so it's not clear that using those is the answer. Now, you may say, well, Tyler, some of those platforms also support PayPal. Is PayPal the answer? And I had to think about that, and I needed to look in that real quick. But if you go and actually look at PayPal's terms of service, which I did, you will find that PayPal also has a policy on transactions that involve sexually oriented goods and services, which they consider sexually oriented digital goods or content delivered to digital mediums, include downloadable pictures or videos or website services, or goods or services that involve or appear to involve minors, obviously that. And so potentially PayPal, it seems like PayPal would potentially allow you to send physical products only to backers in the US, but would not allow you to take international funds or international backing for this kind of content. And they also would not let you to sell any digital for this kind of content. So it's not clear that just jumping ship to our pals at PayPal would be the answer here. Now, are there other alternatives? I mean, everybody, you understand that, and we all hear how the most lucrative thing that you can get on the internet is pornography, right? So how are, these giant porn sites able to collect? I probably should say corn, because I think that word gets throttled on a lot of algorithms. But how are those sites able to thrive and make so much money? And the reality is, there are a lot of other alternatives in terms of payment processors, but a lot of these are considered or called high risk payment processors that have high risk merchant accounts. And when you're looking at those accounts, the fees are a lot higher, like upward in many cases. Just getting started with those payment processors are going to require like a down payment of like $1,000. And then they might take as much as 30% to process what they consider to be high risk transactions, because a lot of times in the adult space, those are among the most highest charged back items. You can just imagine, the how many people out there like get discovered, their habit discovered by a spouse or significant other, and they have to say, oh no, somebody stole my account, that wasn't me, right? So there's a lot of chargebacks in this space, and so that was definitely those options are out there, but we're not talking 3% of funds raised. You're talking a serious commitment to more, and so there's some. So the idea of just a quick and easy alternative definitely doesn't seem to be the case. There are also a few misconceptions out there that I want to talk about. And first is like, I've seen some creators like just really getting up in arms and saying Kickstarter shouldn't censor, and to be honest, like this isn't a Kickstarter thing. Like Kickstarter doesn't want to censor in most cases. They have a pretty broad terms of service of what they allow. Yes, there are the occasional projects that are deemed sort of, culturally insensitive or violate some terms. Like Kickstarter is not a place for hate speech, and they will monitor projects that they feel like violate some of those things. There's also some content that is beyond the pale for Kickstarter, but for the most part, they've tend to be pretty hands off with this stuff up until now. But it really has come down to Stripe. And if you actually look at Kickstarter's responses to Steve, they pretty much shifted everything to Stripe and just saying, hey, your product, your project is not supported by the Stripe platform, but it has nothing to do with us. I had another creator then say, well, Stripe, like where does Stripe get off? And you saw it in Steve's language. I had another creator say Stripe only processes payments, but now they're not processing a payment because they don't like what a business produces. That's strange. They shouldn't be in the business of censoring either. They should have no control over what I write or draw. Like you've heard that sentiment. Or that another creator wrote, it's unbelievable to me that Stripe, a corporation, would consider it their duty to censor content in that manner. I'm not sure where to start with my rage for that ideology. And so I get that, a lot of us are like hands off my comics. Don't moralize me. Don't be the moral police for me. But then when you actually look at it, it turns out it's not even Stripe that is the main reason why Stripe is doing this. It's actually Visa and MasterCard and the major banks who have prohibitions against adult content. You can search the internet and find a lot of examples of Stripe you can find examples of Chase Bank coming down hard and shutting down personal bank accounts of people that they discover were doing sex work or were adult entertainers. Clay Adams, who I mentioned earlier, he's got the Dream Quest book that is out now. When he was going to set up a bank account and for Fried Comics, when he was launching Fried Comics, he was asked, well, hey, to set up the bank account, one of the people at the bank said, well, what kind of comics do you make? And his response was, well, we make pulp fiction for mature readers, which was sort of the Fried Comics tagline. And he said he thinks it was the mature readers line that got their spider sense tingling. And then he had to go answer a lot of questions that was really, it was pretty clear that it was designed to find out, like, oh, is Fried Comics really just making, pornography or that kind of comics? What was it making? Adult themed comics, and with the feeling being that Chase was not going to give him a bank account so that he could connect it to Kickstarter because of the content that he was making. And again, it does seem a little bit, I totally get the argument that it seems hypocritical that your Visas and your MasterCards, they can be used on some of these high risk sites. It's just that they have to go through these intermediaries that then charge you through the nose. So it's like they're profiting off charging more for these high risk things, but they're still ultimately, allowed to get there. Many of the pornography sites out there, when you get charged, it's actually sort of like there's an intermediary company that will show up on your bill for Visa and MasterCard. That's not the company that's actually charging it. And it's that's sort of how they hide the transactions. So, yeah, it's frustrating, but that's sort of the world that we live in. But it's not as simple as just saying, well, Stripe is in the wrong, because they're operating in this world where the major financial institutions out there are very, very against this stuff. And so that's also why, part of the reason why cryptocurrencies exist is because there are a lot of products out there that the major payment processors or financial institutions want zero part of. All right. And so again, that's sort of what we're at, where we're at. So Jay Burns says, this might just be the start, and there might have been more of an uproar if they had targeted Brian, Bad Bug, or Pat Shand. Well, I mean, it's absolutely true. Like, I think most creators probably have not heard of this creator's experience. I guarantee you, if it was the latest from Bad Bug, the latest from Pat Shand and Cheeky Comics, or certainly the latest from Brian Pulido, this would be headline news and would be a huge deal, and everyone would have heard about this story right now. Again, I don't buy that there's anybody over at Stripe that is like, oh yeah, all right, we don't want to make too much of a fuss, so let's go after this $700 project and not this, $60,000 project or $30,000 project or $240,000 project, because we can't, upset, 25 or 30-year veteran Brian Pulido. Like, I don't think there's anybody at Stripe, doing this review stuff. I don't think they're thinking twice about it. I just think with the millions of projects with the millions of people and projects that are connecting to Stripe all over the internet at any given time, the chances that Pat or Brian Pulido's project comes up for review is probably just, the odds probably are just pretty low. But I do think if this project from Pat Shand got reviewed by the same person that at Stripe that reviewed Deep Cover, yeah, this would probably get shut down based on what I know, or based on what I'm speculating. And again, I have no inside info on this. That's just my guess. So one question that came up in my group is does this mean that all adult themed content is now in danger? And the answer to that is definitely no. Like, adult themed content is such a broad term. And that is what Kickstarter replied to Steve with. He said, adult themed content on Stripe is not allowed. But Stripe, when you do look at their terms of service, it is clearer than that. And it really does come around to images, media depicting nudity or explicit sexual acts. So I do believe if your web presence does not explicitly show nudity and explicit acts, then you're probably not in danger at all of getting shut down. But I do know that some creators are sort of having flashbacks to when Patreon did a soft purge of some of the adult content creation over there, and sort of hurt things there. And it seemed that also seemed very arbitrary to a lot of creators, where some creators were able to continue going and others felt like they got shut down. And that's really where I want to get to with and wrap up here, is that this really does just seem like an awful situation, because the idea for Kickstarter to work, like Kickstarter cannot work if it becomes commonplace for a creator to launch a project, have it get accepted, have it fund, do everything that you do during a launch to promote and to advertise and to go through all of what we go through to get a project funded, and then have that thing get shut down at the last minute. Like, that can't be common occurrence. Those ad dollars that you advertise during a campaign to drive traffic to your Kickstarter, like, that's not recoverable. And there is a big cost of switching platforms, and there is a big challenge with, if something like this happens, of like communicating the situation to your backers. It creates a lot of uncertainty, and there's like, is this just the luck of the draw? And then how infinitesimal are the odds, or how common are the odds? Like, what are the chances that this is going to happen to your project? And it does seem like Kickstarter needs to, and also when this happens, it also seems that Kickstarter really does not have many things that they can do to make the situation right. Kickstarter's not going to come out and just refund, or they're not going to make that creator whole for a project that wasn't able to fund, because they, deep in Kickstarter's terms of service, basically they will pass the buck to Stripe, and Stripe is also a big enough company that they're probably not going to bend over backwards if in any, to say, oh, it was our bad. Now, I will be interested to see if Steve's able to get his account reinstated, and if that but like, it'd be one thing if he could get reinstated and then recharge all those projects, and it just goes through, and that would essentially mean that they've rescinded their revocation. They've rescinded their and basically said that his project did not violate it. Or they could just re-up his reconnect his and reactivate his account, but require that changes be made on what he's showing on Kickstarter. And so what I think should happen is that Kickstarter needs to get really clear about what is and isn't allowable on their platform, and they need to be proactive about what creators can do to avoid this. And this should include sharing images and okay, not okay, and they should be really clear about this. From what I have seen, I saw that John Delaraz on his website had reached out to Sam, who is the new head of comics, for comment on this, and that he reported that Sam said that the Kickstarter has no changes isn't planning on making any changes in place about what projects are or not supportable on their platform from their end, but if they do make changes, that they will get the word out about it. So as of right now, I haven't seen any that Kickstarter has put anything out. But I do think that this will become even more of an important thing for Kickstarter to get a handle on, especially considering that Kickstarter is getting into the advertising game for project creators. Kickstarter announced that they have a new Kickstarter performance team, which is basically an in-house digital marketing agency for crowdfunders, that presumably they will be taking money from creators to promote their Kickstarter projects. And I couldn't imagine a situation where one of these not safe for work projects who are, who could really benefit from digital advertising potentially. Well, they go and they give thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars that Kickstarter is processing on their behalf, and then for them to say, "Oh, well, Stripe shut us down. Sorry, you're out of luck, but you still owe us all this money for advertising, even though we're not going to get anything back because the campaign didn't succeed because it got shut down." That would be like make creators, just even that more upset. So I do think this is something that Kickstarter should get their head around and really be proactive about. What do I think is going to happen, though? I don't think Kickstarter is going to say much. I think unless this becomes a super common thing, I think Kickstarter is just going to try to let it go by. And when Stripe bans projects, they're going to pass the buck to Stripe. And so we may be entering an era where creators are sort of playing not safe for work comic Russian roulette. And I think that if 99 out of 100 not safe for work comic projects launch and still fund and still get their money, and maybe only 1 out of 100 get shut down by Stripe, then I don't think we'll see anything change in how creators approach it. I think they'll just say, all right, this is a risk that I'm willing to take. And if it's still like that, 99 out of 100, there's probably no need for Kickstarter to really change. They can just blame it on Stripe, hope that it's, usually the smaller projects, give guidance where they can give guidance, or say, oh, maybe you should remove that page or this page, and just say that'll increase the chances that your project is gonna get nipped. But if there's 9 out of 10 projects that get shut down, or 8 out of 10, or 7 out of 10, at some point, if it becomes really clear that Stripe is stepping up their monitoring of these projects, well, the balance is going to shift, and then I could see creators making a concerted effort to go elsewhere. So some recommendations that I just have for projects that are trying to launch but are still playing in the not safe for work space is, I would definitely make a move to sanitize your Kickstarter page. Make those censor bars probably bigger than you want than you'd want to. You may also want to sanitize your website. So even if your Kickstarter page is pretty tame, but your website for your publishing company has a lot of gratuitous stuff, that might be something that you want to clean up a little bit, knowing that Stripe might check that as well. I also think some of the strategies of, all right, well, I'm going to upload a very tame version of this when I submit my project to Kickstarter, and then after it's been approved and my Stripe is connected successfully, and then I'm going to bring all that stuff back and put in all the spiciest content, and that's a workaround. Honestly, I don't think that's a workaround, because you have no idea when during a campaign that someone at Stripe is going to actually check your Kickstarter page. So I think knowing that you're going to have to list your website, or submit a website, or submit your page with Stripe, and that they can review what you actually have on your page at any time, that's something that you have to contend with, and something that you should keep in mind. So again, I would make sure that you have enough visually compelling imagery and enough of a visually compelling pitch for your project that it could stand on its own, and that the not safe for work elements and the mature reader elements are just sort of icing on the cake. And honestly, when you look at some of the biggest properties out there, Game of Thrones comes to mind, they are able to do that, right? You can go to Game of Thrones and look at all of HBO's marketing for Game of Thrones, and you won't find anything that would get a Stripe ban in place, right? But again, that's just something to keep in mind as you move forward with this. Couple of comments coming in here. Tom Levine says, has Polito, Shander et al. Commented yet? And what would they do if it happened to them? I mean, that's a great question. I know I've seen Pat Shand just share some stuff publicly that Kickstarter had asked him to tone down some of the images on previous pages that he had submitted. And it seems like he has done that somewhat. I would suggest, when comparing, his latest project with what's going on over at Deep Cover Studios, Pat has clearly gone bigger with his censored bars lately, right? So that's, probably one of his most potentially problematic images right here is mostly censor bars. Clearly hasn't hurt this particular project now that Pat has made a name for himself in Cheeky Comics, but it's definitely going to be something that I'm going to be watching for sure, Tom. All right. So yeah, definitely. If you have any other insights, if you've been watching this space, if you come up with other projects that are related to this, that are getting shut down, definitely link them up, share them with me, and we'll dive into that. All right. I'm going to take a drink of water, and we're going to get into a couple other topics in just a second. Okay, what is next? So coming up, we actually have coming up tomorrow is a pop-up comic book creator mastermind session that I will be doing with 4 awesome creators. So tomorrow, it'll be tomorrow night, actually. So hopefully we'll get a good live audience while we are live. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be running a pop-up mastermind session. And a mastermind is simply anytime a group of like-minded individuals come together for common purpose, for support, accountability, resource sharing, problem solving. And these are things that are a ton of fun. And so I've been doing this twice a year. I do one of these pop-up sessions, and actually all year long, I run sort of ongoing mastermind group sessions. But the coming pop-up session is going to be with writer Caleb Palmquist, writer and publisher Rob Multari, a writer-publisher Lori Foster, and writer and editor James Powell. And each of these creators was asked to bring a topic that is something that has been on their mind, something that they are interested in diving into and getting some support around, a challenge, something that they just want to get some support on. And this is really like an all-star session of a pop-up mastermind. Every creator that's going to be involved in the session tomorrow night has been on the ComixLaunch podcast multiple times. A couple of them have been in my mastermind group before, and it's just going to be a good high-level conversation. And I do this every year in lead up to the re-enrollment and relaunch of a group called the ComixLaunch Mastermind, which is a group that I've been running for 7 years now. Hard to believe it. Hard to believe it's been 7 years. But if you are somebody that is interested in the idea of a mastermind, or interested in the idea of meeting on a regular basis, getting it on the calendar so that you're doing it each and every month, and meeting with a like-minded group of creators to share your challenges with, share your struggles, your insights, your network, and just do it in a constructive way. I'd love to tell you more about it. There's going to be a info session coming up on June 13th, where I will share all the details about the upcoming mastermind session. But the best thing that you can do if you are interested in potentially joining a comic creator mastermind group that I run would be to join the interest list for the mastermind in just at any time. You can always go to comixlaunch.com/mastermind for info on that. All right. But what I'm going to share is a couple of just things about masterminds now, and just a little bit of content and some things that I want to keep in mind And I'm recording this also for the podcast because we were going to be entering Mastermind season on the Comics Launch podcast. And so during Mastermind season, there every episode is actually focused on a specific hot seat. So each of the creators that I've invited to join me for the Mastermind session coming up tomorrow night, they're all going to bring a special topic. But also in those episodes, I do share some information about masterminds. And so what I want to share today is 5 valuable qualities that you are going to want in creators that would make up your mastermind. All right. So yes, I run a mastermind group. I've run mastermind groups for many years now, but part of what I like to do with Mastermind season is just encourage creators to get your support network in place, get a support network in place. Sometimes, and I've heard that the Mastermind season that I do on the podcast, in some cases, inspires creators to go out and put together their own mastermind groups, or to join a local mastermind group for creators that are just in their area, or, reach out and start one up from scratch, or look for one, or they realize that, oh, hey, here's this group of creators that's already meeting. Can I go and join them? And so what I want to talk about just today is what kind of creators should you be looking to join, and what kind of group should you be looking to join? So I'm going to give you 5 valuable qualities for group members. And so the first one would be the group has a diverse skill set. Now, one thing that all masterminds will have in common is that they've got to have something in common, right? And so if you're talking the Comics Launch Mastermind, every creator has an interest in creating comics or comics adjacent style projects, and has an interest in launching them to the world, with a particular interest in crowdfunding. That's one of the things that unites the group. But within that group, it is important that the group has a diverse skill set. Members should bring a variety of skills and experiences in different areas of comic book creation to the group. And when you put together a group that has a diverse skill set, it's going to provide you with some well-rounded feedback, some great insights, and it's going to make the group stronger. And so one of the things that I've liked about the Comics Launch Mastermind is we have some artists in there, we have writers in there, we have people with editors or other specialized strengths, such as professional copywriting or graphic design. We also have creators with different distribution experience, some that have published through the direct market, some that focused obviously on Kickstarter, but in some cases other crowdfunding platforms as well, some that have done more with publisher pitching. And so when you get that diverse skill set in your group, the conversations are going to be better, the ability to tackle a wider range of challenges and topics is going to be stronger, and the value that you're going to get from the group is going to be great. And so that's why, when I put together these groups, I like being able to bring in people that are bringing different strengths to the mix. All right. The second thing that you're going to want in your group is everyone should have passion for comics, for creativity, for the work that they do. Members should bring a passionate spirit to the group. A shared enthusiasm can be motivating and can be inspiring and can be something that keeps people wanting to come together. And sort of like one of the important things that I need to do as the facilitator of the group is just make sure that, everybody's got the right vibe for the group, and also make it pretty clear from the outgo that these groups are not there to be just a bitch session or a grievance session or a complaint session. Sometimes that happens where people will, bring up the struggles that they're going through and use this as a time to vent. But What makes that different than, just sitting on your therapist's couch or venting to the wall or someone that doesn't know comics is that the goal of every hot seat, every session is that you're going to come away with a positive, proactive steps that you can take to improve your situation. And when you bring passionate people that have that right attitude, that happens. All right. So passion for comics is second. The third thing the group members should be strong at would be providing constructive feedback. Members should be able to be honest, but also respectful to the group. And they should come in with a spirit where they're there to help you improve your work and grow as a creator. I try to model this, but I also, and one of the ways that I do this, and when I run a mastermind, is I make sure that when creators are bringing a topic or bringing an issue to the table, there's always before we jump in and just try to like solve the problem or give the creator tough love or tell them, the creator, what we would do if we were in the situation, is always do a round of probing questions, so that we can find out, well, what have they already tried? What are they, what's the real problem or the real challenge, or what kind of support would be most helpful, like right now? And sometimes just spending a little bit of time diving deeply means that the feedback that the group can give is far more constructive. But it's also nice when you have, group, and George O'Connor's a great example of a cheerleader that will always, while he often brings really strong, advice or solutions to the table, he also sometimes is the guy that will bring in the positivity and will be the cheerleader and and slap creators on the back when they need it. So, but at the same time, you also want to make sure that the group has enough expertise so the feedback that you get is something that you would actually trust. All right. But bringing a spirit of constructive feedback is another quality that you want in group members. The fourth quality is reliability and a commitment. Members for a mastermind to really work and to thrive should be committed to attending those meetings regularly and participating actively. Reliable participation ensures that the group is going to remain productive and supportive and really can foster those long-term connections over time. When I think of commitment and reliability, Farhan Qureshi is a creator that's was one of the founding members of the ComixLaunch Mastermind, still with us. I think he has a near perfect attendance record across all the masterminds. He even shows up when he's been fasting for religious reasons, or he's someone that's in the UK, and so the time difference means that he's often with us pretty late into the evening. But he's always there, and I appreciate that consistency. And he also always comes with a topic that he wants either some feedback on or that he brings for a hot seat. And so your masterminds need creators like Farhan that are always going to make sure that the conversations are productive and that he comes ready to do the hard work. All right. And so that's another quality in a group member, is just people that are going to be committed and reliable. And then the fifth quality for group members would be someone that, and for members that value networking connections. So often in this world of creativity and comic book, in the comic book industry itself, in a lot of ways, making connections, having the ability to reach out to people and to connect people with other people is the key to so much. Opens a lot of doors, unlocks a lot of possibilities, and helps you expand your reach and potentially find other collaborators, get you connected with publishers, get you coverage on media sites. And so it's important that you have people in your mastermind group that are out there doing stuff, that are being active. I think, again, Clay Adams comes to mind. Clay's doing conventions. He's connecting with other creators. He's emailing. other publishers. He's pitching his stuff out there in the world, and working with editors. And a lot of times, like I will see creators in the mastermind, they'll talk about and they'll share all of these contexts. And before you know it, other creators in the mastermind are working with those contexts. They're, one person shares a great experience working with an editor, another creator ends up working with that editor and also has a good experience, or the swapping cover artists and sharing just marketing tools and marketing PR support help, other resources. And I try to make it a point in every mastermind session where we specifically provide an opportunity for creators to share tools, resources, things that make the work that we do that is so hard just a little bit easier, providing time for that in every single mastermind session that I run. So there you have it. There's 5 valuable qualities for the kinds of members that you should include in any mastermind group that you join or that you start yourself. You want members who bring a diverse skill set. You want members that bring passion for comics and creativity. You want members that are there to provide constructive feedback. You want members who are committed and reliable. And you want members that are open to sharing network connections with one another. All right. So that is the 5 valuable qualities for group members. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is about the facilitator. All right. If you're going to be joining a mastermind group, one thing that I will tell you is that someone needs to be in charge from an organizational and a keeping the thing rolling and going standpoint. Now that role could be something that rotates or that, and there are many groups I think that operate like that, where every year there might be a new person that's elected president or elected in charge of, but that might be a rotating thing, not a permanent thing. Or in some cases, masterminds are built around a brand or a person or a style or a philosophy, and there might be one person that runs that. But regardless, all mastermind groups do need a facilitator for the logistics. And so some of the qualities of a facilitator for the group you join are what I want to talk about now. And I'm going to give you, again, 5 qualities for things that you should look for in your mastermind facilitator. All right. If you're going to join a mastermind group this year. So what should you be looking for in the facilitator? And just in terms of what a facilitator is or does, they're the person that either starts or continues the group, is in charge of communicating the purpose of the group, and in charge of seeing that the group itself delivers on the promise of what the group is there for. And so one thing the facilitator, though, in a mastermind is not there, is they're not there to be the expert. Rather, they're there to create the environment where we can draw the expertise out of every individual in the group to maximize the mastermind, right? To maximize the collective wisdom of the group. And so it's different than just getting up there and being an expert and giving an expert lecture. The mastermind facilitator's job is not necessarily to be the smartest know-it-all in the room. In fact, it's better if they're actually the one that can draw that knowledge out and be strategic and knows enough about the different creators that are in the mastermind to really know sort of when to pass the mic, when to lean on certain creators for certain topics. So 5 qualities for the facilitator of a mastermind group that you join. First, the mastermind group needs leadership skills. They need skills to guide the group, to manage discussions, to keep things on track, to make sure everyone has a chance to contribute, and to make sure that the conversations are valuable to all of the creators present. It's also to make sure that no one creator is dominating the group, or and to make sure that the groups carry on in a constructive fashion. Now, for me personally, leading mastermind groups, like at this point, I've had a lot of experience at this, and I don't think I'm necessarily a leader by default. And, there's a lot of things that I could care less about. I'm also not terribly opinionated on most stuff. I'm not type A on most stuff. I have no problem being a passenger in a car. I have no problem letting other people take the wheel or drive or make decisions about most things. But I am also happy and comfortable taking the lead and running with an idea when I have a vision behind it and feel like I have the ability to bring that vision to life and to bring people along with it. But I think leadership, while some people may be born with more of a predilection to wanting to lead, I do believe that leadership skills are things that with practice, sort of anyone can get better at. And thankfully, even if my inclination is not to be a leader, I think I've had plenty of practice at leading these kinds of groups and these kind of communities. Another thing that a facilitator of a mastermind group needs to have is strong organizational abilities. You need to schedule meetings, set agendas, keep track of the group's progress, have systems in place so that people can get questions asked and answered, and that we keep track of who's said what. And often there's a lot that goes into recording sessions and making sure the sessions get uploaded after the fact and people have access to that. And again, organization stuff is not something, again, I feel like I'm the most naturally gifted at. I've often, relied a lot on a strong memory, but as I've gotten older and maybe the memory's faded a little bit, I've embraced systems to fill in the gaps. And so that's definitely something that's helped me lead mastermind groups, is that even if I'm not the most organized from the outset, I've systematized a lot of things that go into launching and running ComixLaunch masterminds and other things that I've done, and that definitely helps. And then it also helps when the group itself has cohesion and continuity. And the ComixLaunch mastermind usually has about an 80 to 90% retention rate in the group. So I don't actually have to recreate the wheel or teach everyone how everything works every time, or do that all on my own. And there's a lot of institutional wisdom that carries on from one group to the next. But nonetheless, you do need, there is organization that goes on in keeping any group together. All right. Now, the third quality a facilitator your group should have is that he or she needs to be encouraging and supportive. The facilitators of a mastermind group need to create a positive, supportive atmosphere where members are feeling welcome and invited and safe to share their ideas and to provide motivation and support to one another and to ask for support from one another. And this is one area where I do think I've done a good job at. It's starting with the podcast and just the tone of the podcast and going into the other communities that I've launched. I think I've done a good job at keeping an even, positive, productive tone. And that's sort of a part of the ComixLaunch brand. Like we're here to get better, to improve, to support one another, to share what works, and do it trying to keep egos in check. And also, we're not here just to jump to fly out the handle and just jump on every of the latest controversy or things like that. And I'm someone that so there's this great quote from Blair Warren. I think it's called like one sentence marketing. And the quote is this: it says, "People will do anything for those who encourage their dreams, justify their failures, allay their fears, confirm their suspicions, and help them throw rocks at their enemies." And honestly, like, ComixLaunch would probably be bigger at this point, or at least our viewership would be bigger if I made it a point to throw more stones or take more controversial stances or come harder at people or have some enemies that we rally against. Like that stuff is very polarizing, but it's also, it will rally people, and sometimes, you can measure the reach of people not just by how many people support them, but how many people are against them. And oftentimes you find that like the more people are lined up against, whether it be a political figure or a YouTube channel or stuff, the more hate they get, they also tend to get the more support, the more views, the more interest. I have decidedly not gone down that route, and I'm not going to go down that route. I'm not a rock thrower. I'm not in this game to make enemies and to make war on my enemies or any of that. And so the benefit of not going down that road is that it's very easy to make the spaces that I support or that I create feel supportive, feel like a safe space for a wide variety of creators. And so I don't think I've alienated people. And that's been something that has been, something that I do hang my hat on, even if I don't, even if it does not come with the thousands of subscribers that might otherwise come if I was coming at certain quadrants of the internet and made that as big a part of my brand as just sharing Kickstarter and advice or great comics and other things. So there's that. The other thing that I want to share in terms of qualities of the facilitator for the group you join, the mastermind group you join, is that person should have strong experience in the industry that you want to be in. In my case, it's comic books. You should have experience in the comic book industry, whether it's as a creator, an editor, a publisher. You should be someone that could provide valuable insights and guidance to the group. And sometimes if there's a question and no one in the group has that experience, it definitely is helpful when the facilitator of the group, has strong opinions or has that experience. And, as you can see from the gray in my beard, I've had a lot of experience. I have some age to go with the wisdom, hopefully. My experience, particularly in Kickstarter, but also in the direct market. On the creation side, I've done everything from drawn and done everything on a comic by myself to working on big anthology projects and collaborations and everything in between. A lot of publishing experience. There is some stuff that I'm weaker on the book market side, like the big bookstore market. Very little penetration for our books to this point. I also don't have a lot of insight on the workings and in inner goings at the larger comic book companies. I don't have a lot of experience pitching and getting my pitches accepted for Marvels and the DCs of the world, and or how the sausage is made at those stuff. So, those are some areas that I definitely don't have expertise on. But one of the cool things about a mastermind group is that when you have a facilitator that has some connections, but maybe isn't an expert in everything, well, you can always bring in outside voices to supplement the people inside the group. And so I know with my mastermind, we try to get at least 3 guest lecturers to come in and speak to the group, give a topic on a topic of their choice or expertise. And that can really help supplement the outside voices, even if the facilitator doesn't have that direct experience. If they can bring in somebody that does, well, that's just as good. And then the last thing that the facilitator needs to be able to have is to be able to bring a sense of neutrality, evenness, and fairness to the group. They should be able to ensure that all members' voices are heard and that no single member dominates discussions. And this is definitely something that I try to keep in mind. Sometimes it's tough because when you pull together any group, you're going to have some people that love to talk and some people that tend to be a little bit more quiet. You're going to be some people that feel like they have something that they need to get support around every single week, and some people that if you don't pull it out of them, they might just kind of feel like, I don't want to bother people with this. And so that's why one of the things that's really helped me when I've launched and facilitated my groups is I do try to build in certain opportunities for everyone in the group to check in, such that, nobody can come to a meeting and go hour and a half, 2 hours that we meet for a live session without saying at least a little bit and giving us a little bit of insight into how things are going for them, for their creative business, what their wins are, what they need support around. But it's definitely something that you need to be able to keep in mind and to balance if you're going to facilitate one of these groups. In a lot of ways, the facilitator, while he is not the star, he or she is not the star, he or she is not the expert, he or she often sets the tone and sets the environment, and has to be in charge of modulating that tone or environment in case things are getting out of balance. All right. And so when you have these qualities in mind, again, I'll review them. Those are neutrality and fairness, experience in the industry, encouraging and supportive, strong organizational abilities, and leadership skills. When your mastermind facilitator has these qualities, the group is definitely going to be something that will help you thrive in, and that you will add a ton of value to as well. So again, we'll be talking about more mastermind stuff all month long. I hope some of y'all will join me tomorrow night as we do a live pop-up session with Caleb and Rob and Lori and James. It's going to be a very, very strong session. Some really cool topics coming up tomorrow night. We'll be streaming at 7:30 p.m. EDT. And also, if you like the idea of a mastermind, you want to jump in and join a mastermind group that I run, you can find out more information about the Comics Launch Mastermind coming up over at comicslaunch.com/mastermind. All right. So with that said, I'm checking out. Thanks everyone for tuning into this stream. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day, and I can't wait to see what you launch next. Take care, everybody.